Hello, and welcome to the second annual Eco Photo Fest under a virtual experience. We have our fantastic presenters, and my son is in the background putting away his recycling, so that may be the noises that you're hearing on my end of the screen. So good thing for him to do that, but bad timing for me. Anyway, thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. Our presenters, and you can go to smithvilletx.org to watch their presentations if you're watching this after the fact. Kim Ridley is here, Brian Hummel is here, Mary Pretty is here, and Jeff Parker is here right now. And thank you all very much for your informative and amazing presentations this year. We really appreciate what you've done. This is really our Q&A for our panelists. I think what I'd like to do is, oh, and I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, Lori is here as well. Lori was here, she was our interviewer for the interview with Kim Ridley, and she's here. She does the bird parade here in town this year, and hopefully many years into the future, and has done the Matagorda bird parade for a long time. Carolyn Noya is here, and she's the co-chair of EcoFest. Linda Bauer, who is our other co-chair for the Photo Fest side, unfortunately could not make it. And April Daniels, of course, is here as the Chamber Executive Director and our fantastic technical advisor and person who's taken care of all of the Zoom, everything we need to have Zoom-wise. She's our Zoom czar. So all of that being said, we can kind of get started. And I think what I'd like to do, if it's all right with y'all, is, if you don't mind, for the presenters, just say a little bit about who you are and what you presented, just for a few minutes, for any of the audience who hasn't watched your specific video, and go ahead and we'll go. Let's start with Kim, because she's on the top of the list here, and then we'll move to Jeff, and then I think Brian, and then Mary. And then Lori, if you wanted to mention anything, you can say something with Kim, I suppose, right? Would that make sense? And we'll kind of go from there. Does that make sense to everybody? All right.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Kim. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. And hi, everyone. Greetings from Maine. I'm in a beautiful part of Maine right now, Phippsburg, out on the coast. I've been watching gannets, which are pelagic birds, and minke whales. And my passion is connecting people with nature, inviting people of all ages to connect with the natural world right around us. And I like to say, what I really like to do is incite wonder. And what I mean by that is just inspire people to go out and look at the amazing natural world around us and share what they discover with other people. The way I do that is through my books and presentations. I do a lot of writing workshops for elementary school kids all the way up to adults. And I share my books. So the way I connected with all of you, and I love the Gulf Coast, and I've had a couple of wonderful trips to Texas, thanks to a wonderful trip with Lori Beck down to Palacios. I'm writing a book about Matagorda Bay and the incredible ecology there, told through a family of American oyster catchers. So I fell in love with the estuary of the Texas-Colorado River, and I can't wait to see and explore the part of the river you all are on. I have a book coming out about headwater streams, which are the source of rivers, called The Secret Stream, in addition to the book about Matagorda. And I have a new book coming out, my first book for adults. I'm calling it a Gateway Nature book. It's called Wild Design, Nature's Architects, and it's how the natural world builds incredible structures and materials from snail shells on up to birds' nests. So my real joy is discovering and sharing the just incredibly beautiful and amazing world around us. And I'm really happy to be with all of you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kim. Jeff, you wanna say who you are? Give us a little.
Sure. Hi, I'm Jeff Parker. I'm a nature and wildlife photographer. Had a lifelong interest in nature. Picked up photography in the early 2000s. Started out with editorial work, magazines, things like that. My wife and I had a book in 2016 called Explore Texas about different nature photography, or not nature photography, but just nature venues in Texas for different types of enjoyment of nature. I lead photo tours mostly in the Americas, also a little bit in Africa and India. And I'm based here just outside of Smithville. I have 13 acres, little nature preserve. We do workshops and things like that here at Red Belly Ranch.
Great. Okay, Brian. Do you mind saying a little bit about yourself? And
yeah, okay. My name is Brian Hummel, born and raised in Texas, always interested in the natural world. I'll say that I'm a biologist by birth, and similar to Kim, I've been very interested in natural structures, including birds' nests. I did a lot of work with the Nature Conservancy on birds, did a lot of work on groundwater recharge and ways you can slow spread and sink water into the landscape. So also similar to Kim and being fascinated by these different structures, I've been very interested in the last couple of years about beaver and how beaver are these amazing ecosystem engineers and the people that maintained and managed our riverscapes for a long time before humans got here. And so I now follow those practices and use biomimicry to help turn various liabilities into assets, whether it's agricultural assets or groundwater assets, or helping people have a more resilient community garden all the way up to giant farms. So again, thank you for having me, and I look forward to learning from the panel and answering any questions that might come my way. Thank you.
thank you, Brian. That's great. Mary, do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
If I can unmute myself, sure. Greetings from the thriving metropolis of Dale, Texas, just in Bastrop County. My name is Mary Kay Pretty. I am the Conservation Program Manager for the City of Austin's Office of Sustainability. Yes, that does fit on one business card, sadly. And I gave 2 or 3 presentations, and they just sort of encompassed all the different areas of sustainability. I did one on energy conservation, one on waste management, and then one on just drawing a complete blank here.
Water. You had
Water. Thank you. See, if I sat here long enough, someone would save me. Thank you very much. And I've been with this department since its inception, since 2007. Prior to that, I was a teacher, and for 12 years, I was a touring stand-up comic. So I love to talk. My passion is working with kids, and from that, I developed and managed a program through the city called the Bright Green Futures Grants Program. And in the 10 years this program has been in operation, we've handed out over $250,000 to area schools to put in sustainability themed projects, anything from bike programs to chicken coops to community gardens to water cisterns. It just runs the gamut. So so happy to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Mary, that's great. Thank you very much. And I forgot, Lori, I think I meant for you to introduce yourself right after Kim, and I forgot. So why don't you do that now? You have to unmute. Sorry, try to unmute.
Make the bar go.
Okay, I think it was opposite of what I thought. Hi, and thank you for the introduction. I'm happy to be just a parallel support to bringing Kim to our Colorado River. The things that we've done before have been downriver at the Gulf Coast. And so naturally, when we moved to Smithville, we felt like it was great to bring an awareness about estuary systems and riverine systems to Eco Photo Fest. And part of what I'd like to do next year that never happened this year was showing how to build something creative to celebrate bird diversity in this area. So we had a little parade of birds. I hope some of you got a chance to see that, and maybe through FaceTime, or maybe you were there. It was a small audience, but continue to focus on growing that in Smithville in the years to come. So I'm glad to be part of the Q&A. And if you have any questions, I'm glad to try to answer them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lori. And I guess I never said I am Jill Struve with, I'm connected to the City of Smithville and the Chamber of Commerce and a couple other things. And we started EcoFest back about, I want to say 10 or 11 years ago. Honestly, I can't remember. It's been a long time. But we merged with PhotoFest last year with, just to draw more attention. The idea being the more that you observe something to make, like to take its photo, the more interested you're in it, the more likely you're going to learn about it, the more likely you're going to be to love it and save it. So that's kind of the whole premise of this whole program. And I did want to just say to all of our panelists again, thank you again so very much for your presentations. They're amazing and fantastic. And if you haven't seen them yet, just go ahead and take a look because they're really good. And I noticed across pretty much the theme, almost all of you had education and children and, had to do with youth. What kinds of things, so my first question to you all is, what kinds of things do you think have been the most effective ways of getting kids excited and interested in doing things like checking out the birds in the area, or thinking about energy efficiency, or whatever it is in your field that you had in mind? And I'll open that up to the panelists. And I did want to mention, if you have a question, if you are listening in and you have a question, there's two ways to do that. You can either raise your hand, which is if you go down to scroll down at the bottom, and you'll see something called reactions, and you'll see a way to put an icon on your screen, and then we'll take a look at that and we'll make sure that we ask you to unmute and you can talk at that time. Or you can put it in the chat and I will read the chat if you're shy and you don't want to, if mute isn't working, if mute is not your friend and you want me to read it for you, that's fine too. So that's my first question to all of you is about education and so forth. So maybe Kim, do you want to start? Because that was kind of
sure. I'll jump in. Yeah. So the main way I work with kids is creative nonfiction writing workshops about the natural world. So I share my picture books with them. The first one is called The Secret Pool. It's about vernal pools, and teach the kids just sort of invite. But I think that the way I love to work with kids and adults is by invitation. Just to kind of take a look at the world around us, and then work with observation. So I share a little bit of my process for researching and writing my books, which are all science-based, and then sort of emulate that process with kids. So they pick a favorite, and some of the animals, pick an animal they're interested in. And the first thing we do, or we go outside, if we're lucky enough to go outside and do a workshop, just observe. And I teach them some basic observation skills. What do you notice? So the first, it just starts with quieting down, being still, and noticing. And then the next step is, what are your questions? Because I found in my work, I've worked in hundreds of classrooms, mostly in New England, but also elsewhere. And I think oftentimes kids feel like they have to have the right answer and know everything. So I start with, you don't have to know anything, just take a look around. And they pick one thing that they notice, and then what do you wonder about it? And make a list of questions. What are you curious about? And I think that invites ownership and inquiry. So, what do you see? What are you drawn to? And then what are your questions about it? We do a little bit of research, and then invite kids. I share some tools for creative writing, some simple writing prompts. So that's how it's just fun to kind of let kids loose in nature with some guidance about observing, give them some tools for inquiry, asking questions. There's no such thing as a wrong question. They do some research, and then give them support and tools to express what they see and what they share. So I'm trying to think how I would sum all that up in a sentence, but I think it's invitation to look around and giving kids some power and ownership with creative tools and in expression and sharing.
That's great. That's great. Was there anybody else on the panel would like to add to that?
So I haven't worked directly with children, but I participated in a photography contest 3 different times on the Texas coast called Wildlife in Focus. And out of that contest, every year they produce a book with the winning images from that year's contest. And that book is donated to classrooms in Texas, and it's tied into the 4th grade science curriculum.
Wow.
So many of these kids are looking through these images and they may not even realize that we have these animals in Texas. They see a picture of a roseate spoonbill or a bobcat or an alligator, and they may not even realize that these things live in our state. So that kind of gets them interested in getting to learn a little bit about the natural wonders we have right here in our own backyard.
That's great, Jeff. I'll have to find out from you if I don't know that we're doing that here in Smithville specifically or not, but I'll contact you afterwards and see if we can connect that. And make
Yeah,
sure
the program is called Critters for Kids.
Critters for Kids. Okay, all right, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, all right. Mary, you had mentioned kids in as well. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Definitely. One thing that I found, and I say this a lot in presentations that I make to adults and to schools as well, is that kids just get it. If we're talking about sustainability, if we're talking about green things, I jokingly say that my generation, we sort of fell into it. I would recycle things because I got a nickel back on the soda bottle. My mother personally blew a hole this big in the ozone layer, with all of her Aquanet. So asking people in my generation to make some concessions and some changes, adapt their behavior to help the planet, it was kind of foreign to us because we didn't grow up with it. Change doesn't come easily. And kids are sponges. They hear everything, they see everything, and they act on it, and they're not having to change their behavior. So I just find that when I go and talk to kids and just give an avenue just to let me know what they're thinking. They've got some great ideas. A lot of the projects in my grant program are designed by children.
Wow.
One of my favorite stories, real quick, running over here, is I go to this event every year, and it's a career day. It's sort of based on speed dating. And so I did my little 5-minute spiel, and the kids went to the next table, and the lady was doing something with flashlights. And then her flashlight, the battery ran out. So she takes it, she just, she Shaquille O'Neal's it into the trash, and all the oxygen left our little area because the kids were like, "Oh, Mrs. Johnson, paper goes in black, cans go in green, batteries go," and they just knew it, and I felt so bad for Mrs. Johnson. But, I just have such hope that if we can just get to the kids, we're going to be fine.
That's a great story. Love it. Yeah. Brian, did you want to add anything? No? Okay. All right. So, and just to bounce off of that. Okay. So, we're reaching out to the kids. What kinds of things? I know this effort is obviously geared more towards adult education kind of things. What kinds of things have you seen that work really well to just reach out to adults and to get their imaginations centered back into these topics and to really start to make some changes? Brian, did you want to kick in there? Yeah.
Yeah, I find when you treat adults like kids and give them the same opportunities, they can go out and explore too. And sometimes it's enlightening to see the world from a different set of eyes. So, I go out with a lot of people that are already in tune with nature. But then if you go out and give presentations to, or even take field trips with adults that maybe didn't grow up in a natural setting as much, oftentimes I find them almost as excited about the kids when they see different things in nature. So yeah, I think letting them observe and letting people, whether you're an older kid or a younger kid, letting them observe nature and learn for themselves on how some of this stuff works. And of course it takes some guidance. Not everybody not everybody might understand some of these more complicated things in biology first off, but it oftentimes makes so much sense that when you explain it in a particular way, it's like you can see the light bulbs go off, whether they're 5 or 75.
That's great. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
I would just second that 100%. And it's really fun to witness adults out in, out in the world and observing, and it's almost like sometimes just giving them permission to just take it in and play. It's very playful and reconnect, but 100% second what Brian's saying. Yeah.
Lori, I was thinking about the bird parade we just had where, the kids were really super creative, but the adults were also just so into all of their, all the work that they did do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I was enjoying watching other people's videos because I saw my husband's business partner leap and prance around like a bird carrying that roseate spoonbill kite. And we just hope that there's a growing awareness of how much fun it is to celebrate bird diversity in an offhand way. Matagorda Bay Bird Fest has been going on this is our 6th year this year. And we do a host of things for adults that are very serious birders that are already into birding tend to be attracted to the tours and the things that we do down in Matagorda Bay. But for Smithfield, we hope this growing interest in celebrating species diversity can take many, many forms. And I just enjoy watching everybody have fun, getting together in a sense of community building when you're making the paper mache costumes. And that took many, many Wednesdays or Thursday nights at Judy Paul's place. So we want to bring that more into the schools, into an art department, and help donate the supplies for that and encourage people to do it as a whole family. I think it's a family affair and it's wonderful.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So just to stay on the bird theme for a second, let's switch over to photography just for a minute too. Jeff, I just wanted to say, I loved your presentation. I was so grateful that I was the person who was interviewing you. The couple of things that I just wanted to reiterate from your presentation that I got out of it as not a photographer was, like there's so many, obviously there's all the technical stuff that gets into the photography that's really astounding and can make for some amazing shots. But that idea that you're planting natural plants and you are not using pesticides because that's what birds eat, that I thought was that was my biggest takeaway from the whole presentation. But I wanted to just give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more about not just the birds and the habitat and so forth, but just get a little bit of the photography. I think that you are, I want to say you're my only photographer on the panel this year. I'm sorry to say, it just didn't quite work out as a little more evenly as last year did. But if you wanted to just shout out to our photographers and give us a little bit of technical stuff, that would be great.
Technical stuff. Yeah, it's hard to know where to start. It depends on what you're photographing. When you're doing like landscape or night sky photography versus bird or macro photography, they're all very different as far as your equipment and your techniques. But yeah, and you don't have to get into the technical. A lot of this stuff today, you can just leave it on auto and it'll do pretty darn good. And once you get to where you're more comfortable with that and you want to take it to the next level, then you can start learning more about the more technical side of things. But yeah, and even just an iPhone for landscape type stuff and skies and things like that, they've really come a long way and gotten really good.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. And Linda Bauer just jumped on. She was our co-chair for the photography side, for the Photo Fest side of this. So just shout out and hello to Linda Bauer. And if she wants to jump in at any point about photography or anything like that. And certainly I don't want to be the only one asking questions of the panelists. So if anybody does want to, you can go ahead. Like I said, you can raise your hand or you can type in the chat. And I think we're probably not going to have too much chaos. So even if you just want to turn off your mute and say, excuse me, I have a question, I think that would work too. So, Linda, do you want to say a little hello while you're here?
Sure. I have been out of it. I was not able to be at the Photo Fest, but I understand from seeing the pictures and stuff that it was a very well attended event and looks like everybody had a lot of fun. So I'm just thankful to all the speakers and everybody for being here tonight. That's pretty much all I have right now.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Okay, so moving on from like a segue from technical, I was just thinking we've got and I've got April is saying she wants to ask Mary Pretty something about water and the ecology, which is a little bit of the technical side. So not photography technical, but other technical, I guess.
Do I get a lifeline? Can I call out if I don't know the answer? No, wrong show. Okay, what you got?
So April, do you have a specific question? Oh, it says particularly how it relates to the enjoyment of nature.
Mary, I'll jump in here. Sorry, I was trying to quickly type in a question for you. This is April. So because this event is Eco Photo Fest and we're really working, especially like how Kim Ridley has done such a great job of talking about going out and enjoy nature around you, Jeff as well. I'm very interested in your particular experience and how the messaging that's I know we all see on a regular basis, but I'm not at all in any way an expert about how the ecology around us, it has been impacted by pollution and has very likely discouraged folks from getting out and enjoying nature around them, and how maybe people can figure out how to go out, maybe clean up nature around them so that they can enjoy spaces and get out and be involved and maybe take some photographs before and after and those types of things.
What a great question. Obviously, all aspects are impacted by climate change, by pollution. Waterways, or we're not getting as much rain, so we don't have as much the wildlife preserves and plant life. Is not as robust as as it has been and could be. And then let's just face it, it's hot. Nobody wants to go out when it's 103 in the afternoon and do a nature tour. So what we're really pushing for folks to do, and this is something we're really working with the local school districts are to sort of create your own, have your planting like native plant gardens. These are gardens that aren't going to require a lot of water. They're going to be able to survive here in Central Texas with the brutal heat. These are things that are going to attract wildlife. They're going to attract monarch butterflies. They're going to attract, other dragonflies, other beauty, birds, and so maybe it's not as large and expansive as, going to a state park or going to something larger than that. But it's like, creating these little mini parks throughout, beautifying areas, finding an area that has been run down or deserted. Used to be a ball field. Now it's nothing. And going out and getting neighbors, getting communities together to plant these, it's going to improve air quality. It's going to improve. We're going to get kids outside. We're going to get folks doing some research. Hey, what does this plant do? How does this benefit the ecosystem? How is it benefiting our area? And I say this all the time when I talk to people, that people get, they get kind of bogged down. They hear the words like climate and global, and they're like, there's nothing I can do. And it's all just a bunch of little steps. Let's, create these little mini parks, these little mini gardens. And eventually, if we build enough of them, things are going to connect, and, we'll be back outside, and, nature will be thriving, and, you won't just look outside and get depressed, as some people have. So, and again, that's not going to require a lot of water. It's just gonna, build upon what we have here in Texas, and that's outside and hot. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Mary. And this is perfect for Brian. Absolutely. Thanks for yes, absolutely.
So I agree 100%. A little escape in your backyard, or one of those, set up your yard for a monarch way station. But even in community spaces, a way to attract the people that are always staring at their phone, to attract their attention. I've seen several state parks do something tied back to photography, and that is they either put a QR code on a little sign or they put a hashtag so that when people go to that park, they can take a picture of whatever they think is interesting. They put it on that hashtag and post it to whatever social media they want. And then if you go back to, say, the Smithville Community Garden, even though you weren't there when they had this, who knows, giant caterpillar attack or this amazing butterfly swarm, somebody else took that picture and now it's there for other people to see. It's engaging with the people that are living a lot of time in the digital world instead of the physical world. And I think that's important too. You got to sort of meet people where they are. And I haven't seen a lot of those in Texas. I really saw a lot of those like hashtag photo point places in Florida, but it's a way to engage people, bring them into nature and photography both at the same time, and help you photo document areas that you might only visit once a year. But if there's people there every day, if even 1 out of 10 of them take a photo, now you have basically photographs of your place throughout the whole year. I think that's a really interesting way to engage people, which I think was sort of the gist of April's question.
That's great. I love that. That's great. We have to, that's actionable, April. We'll have to figure out how to make those signs. So Brian,
I really appreciate both of
go
your,
ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Jill. I really appreciate the answer there. And I think my point is, as someone that is not very educated when it comes to issues that have to do with nature and ecology and how they meet, it has been my experience that people are hesitant to, number one, participate in getting out and getting involved in nature, and people are a little nervous about how they can go interact with nature. And I think that bravery that you're all talking about, where you just kind of give a particularly adult permission to go out and interact with, that's a really great point, and I appreciate that.
I had a quick resource to add. I'm sure some of you folks know this is a wonderful book called, I think it's called Bringing Nature Home by Doug Tallamy. And it's just terrific. I think he's an entomologist. He's a great speaker, by the way. I heard him speak. And it's basically about doable changes you can make in your own yard or property to attract more wildlife. And again, it's that, that idea of what one person can do, very accessible, again, offering that invitation. And I love the photos and the QR codes. That's very cool too. Yeah.
Brian, do you mind also talking a little bit about those micro berm and macro berm, the thing, like the whole, like, I know that your presentation has all the photos, but just talk a little bit about how in our own yards, we can do more with nature and also absorb the water through doing a few simple steps.
Yeah, so if you spend a lot of time out and observing nature, especially if you go out after we get these, amazing rain events, you'll see these little like squiggles on, most people call them squiggles on the ground, but it's where like leaves and debris get pushed up and make this little beaver dam. It might only be, half an inch tall and a couple inches wide, but there's one and there's another and there's another and there's another all the way down the landscape. And anytime you go out after a pretty decent sized rain and before the area has been walked on and disturbed, you'll find what I call these little micro detritus berms. And if you change your perspective and you think that you're about the size of an ant, when you're the size of a human, you could still walk across that field and barely get your shoes wet because the water might only be half an inch thick in that area. But if you change your perspective down to the size of an ant, each of those microdetritus berms, I mean, that's like a giant lake behind there. And if you're the size of an ant, that looks a lot like those rice paddy systems all over Asia, where they're catching water in these contour rice fields over and over and over again. And even though it doesn't seem like a lot, it might only again be half an inch thick of water during the rain, but that's helping that water slow down and have enough time to really soak into your ground and become one of the most important assets for your soil. So I'll highlight again something that I think is really impressive, and that is every acre of land, each inch of rain on every acre of land when it comes out of the sky is 27,000 gallons. So that means that you have, 12 to 15,000 gallons, even if that area is holding back half an inch. And if every area in Texas held on to their water by even an extra half an inch, our flooding liabilities would be significantly reduced, and we'd have more water flowing into the river during dry times, and we would be adding more water to our groundwater bank account instead of most groundwater systems are being, people are taking more out than we add. And groundwater is a lot like a bank account. If you're always withdrawing more than you deposit, you're going to end up broke. And in the case of groundwater, you're going to end up thirsty. And neither of those two situations are very much fun. So there's little things that you can do when you observe, and then you can enhance that by, if you're going to put in gardens, or you want to have a flower bed, or you want to do a pollinator garden, watch how the water comes across your landscape and make a raised bed to catch it. And then if the water hits it and flows off on the downhill side, you can sort of twist the ends up a little bit and make it like a boomerang, or make it like a banana to catch some of that water. And then the rainfall, instead of hitting the river and contributing to a flash flood liability, you can catch that water in these little boomerangs or bananas or smiley faces or bowls or whatever you want to call them. So the water comes in and then soaks right into the root system of your plant or your tree or whatever it is you're trying to get established. And I think that's a really good, even getting from the adults all the way down to the young kids, that's something that makes a lot of sense. So growing up, I used to, you'd plant a tree and everybody said you had to put all this mulch around it. So I put this huge donut of mulch around the whole tree. And then when you come out after a rain event, you can see that the water came down and just whoop, went right around your donut. So I took that donut, because donuts are not very happy for trees, and I opened it up into a banana or a smiley face. And bananas are way better than donuts. And then the trees caught all that water. It soaked right to the root system. And literally there's still trees out at one of our little places in the hill country. And the areas that we had donuts, the trees are still small. And the areas that we made it into boomerangs and bananas and smiley faces, the trees are 4 or 5 times as big, just because they got that tiny little bit of extra water. And when you live in a drought prone area, just a little bit of extra water makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Is there anybody else want to add on to easy kind of what we can do in our backyard to attract birds, or to make some more observations, or any of you want to kind of tag on to that yeah, go ahead.
Okay, just to add on to that, for people that think they have a brown thumb, seeds are cheap. Just get some seeds. I would suggest some native seeds and throw them out, and you can just about forget them. They've lived here for thousands and thousands of years. They're adapted to our environment. There's lots of places, whether it's going up to Fredericksburg and going to the Wildflower Seed Store, or there's this Native American seed company out of Junction, Texas. They all have some really amazing native wildflower mixes. You can get them for color, you can get them for shade, you can get them for sun, you can get them that are deer resistant, you can get them for, they have like this hummers and singers mix, they've got this butterfly retreat mix, and they're easy. So, if you want to have a butterfly garden, you want to bring some of that nature to your landscape, drop $20 on a pack of a wide diversity of different native wildflower seeds, and find a spot that your grass won't ever grow, throw it out, and maybe care about it for a month or two and water it occasionally if it looks really dry. And I think you'll be really surprised with the results. So don't think you can't do it. Just try it. It's not that expensive to bring nature back to your landscape.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that, going with the diversity. So our property here south of Smithville is mostly red clay. The soil is pretty bad. And when we bought the place, it had been overgrazed and a lot of it was just bare dirt. So we did exactly what Brian is saying. We went to Native American seed, tried all different kinds of seeds. Don't get hung up on any particular species because some of them didn't work here. Others really like the soil and the rainfall and temperatures that we have here in our particular property, and they've done well. So yeah, I totally, completely agree with what Brian is saying. And if everybody, you don't have to do your whole yard in a big, messy looking native prairie, but if you do one small portion and everybody did that, we'd have a lot more habitat than just this dead, sterile St. Augustine lawn.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. So it's about 10 minutes before, 14 minutes before the hour, but I do want to make sure I've been the only one asking questions so far. I want to make sure that if there's any questions, anybody who's in the audience, Will, Caroline, Lori, go ahead.
I have a question for Kim, and it was something I remember talking about with her. And now that I live in Smithville, I was thinking about the lessons that they applied in Maine. And it was a walkway to the school where the kids are walking and gardens were planted and seeds were labeled. And it just had some artwork from the children along the pathway. So maybe we could, if Kim could share a little bit about those wayfinding things that you did through the library, or tell us more about that project. It's just ran across my mind's eye right now as the guys were talking.
Yeah, there are a number of different iterations of it, but one that's really popular here is called a story trail. And that is using not a nonfiction picture book about the environment in the area and partnering with, typically the way we do it here is partnering with a local library, an author, and a conservation organization. And then it's simply taking pages from the book, laminating them, and putting them up along a nature trail. So kids are learning and absorbing as they go. So one community used my book about vernal pools on a property where I live in Brooklyn called 100 Acre Woods. And so right at the vernal pool, there's a spread from my book that's laminated. What is a vernal pool? What kinds of frogs and salamanders lay their eggs there, and on through. So it's a fun thing for families to do together. And then other schools have simply created incredible nature trails, and then work with where I am usually the local chapter of Audubon, and invite folks from Audubon to come and lead walks with the kids. And I partnered with Audubon too with books and observation. So it's really a cool way of pulling different community groups together. And then one more project I did with kids that was super fun, with a nonprofit in Maine called Island Readers and Writers. So what they do is they bring children's book authors and illustrators to underserved communities, and really the rural eastern part of the state, pretty remote towns. And what we did there is we partnered with the Moosehorn National Wildlife Refuge and the school. And with the school, that the kids drive by this amazing wildlife refuge, lots of moose, lots of incredible water birds, woodcocks, and bears and eagles and all kinds of things. They go by the refuge in their school bus every day, but very few of the kids had spent any time there, maybe one trip to the little tiny nature center. So in that partnership, we did a safari through the wildlife refuge. I borrowed a school bus and a biologist from the refuge, and we just took the kids through the observing in a morning, making notes, shared some writing tools and prompts with them and how I did my book. And their challenge was to write their own book through the school year as a school based on their observations. And they had to fact check with the biologists. So they had to work with the follow up with the refuge staff. And they ended up publishing a book. They called it Moosehorn Secrets. So again, it was really a fun way to engage kids in literally their own backyards. So there are a lot of creative things you can do. And they were so proud, and they had an event for the whole community. So it was really, really a great thing. And it also connected the wildlife refuge with the school, which was fun.
For you to come, I can't wait for you to be able to come to Smithville and see our relationship to the Colorado and help us imagineer some projects.
I can't
in
wait.
the future.
I can't wait.
Post-COVID, we're going to be looking for that trip at a meeting at the library and with the school teachers.
Oh, I can't wait to see your river. And I fell in love with all of your wildflowers and birds. My husband and I was writing a story in Austin quite a few years ago, and I just think about scissortail flycatchers.
Flycatcher, yes.
Oh my gosh, and vermilion flycatchers, and I can't wait till that day. That will be wonderful. And I just wanted to share how inspiring it is to share this time and space with all of you and hear about your stories and your work and your ideas. It makes me feel very fired up. Thank you.
We are jazzed to have everybody too. Thank you for being part of it.
My pleasure.
Oh, thank you all. We really do appreciate this so much. All of your work is so important. And I just want to tell you, I'm so grateful that we were able to do this with you all this year, and that this is going to be archived, and we'll be able to, share it with a whole lot of people throughout the year and into, forever, I guess, until, the internet is not the internet anymore, or whatever, I guess, I don't know. So we're at about 9 minutes before the hour. Does anybody want to do anything, say anything to wrap up, or are there any other questions from anybody else? Mary, did you want to talk just a little bit about energy conservation, just for carry us to the end of the show, so to speak?
All right, sure. We anybody that's presentation, we in the city of Austin, and we're working to make ourselves net zero, meaning that the city and the surrounding communities are going to be have zero emissions. Initially, when the plan was first developed in 2007, the idea was that we would be net zero by 2050. And what's so unique about Austin and the plan that we had is that there are other major cities in all over the globe that were saying, yeah, we're going to be net zero by 2050. But you would ask them, well, tell us how you're going to do that. And they would go, we're going to be net zero by 2050. And what gives me such pride and such hope when I go to work every day is our city council had the foresight to really put a plan in place for us. And they came up with what was called the Austin Climate Protection Plan. The first thing we did was we're going to green all of our municipal operations. So we can't come to the citizens and go, you people need to be greener if we're leaving our lights on, driving around in Hummers and eating out of styrofoam. So we put all the city businesses on renewable energy. We're working to do the same with our vehicles. And we're so far ahead of the curve that we update the plan every 5 years, and it's the one that will be going out, fingers crossed, is going to council in 2 weeks for approval, is actually going to move that data up to 10 years. So by 2040, and it's because we've got the buy-in from businesses and from citizens. Folks are they're driving less. Obviously the pandemic has silver lining in that is, many of us have had to work from home, but folks are smarter, and my job is finding what's important to the audience. I've talked to businesses or community groups, and they're like, I don't care about any of this, save me money. And so my theme has sort of been, I don't care why you come to the table, just come to the table. And working with folks, just, simple things, like turning off lights, changing to a different type of light bulb, This is the thing that I want everyone to take away, that water waste is energy waste. When you think of the amount of energy that's produced to purify the water, pump it to your home, heat it once it's there, and then, pump it back to the facility. My did you know takeaway is that if you run your hot water for 5 minutes, you're using as much energy as if you ran a 60-watt light bulb for 22 hours. So think about that. So that's why, water is such a commodity here in Texas. And so you waste that, you're also wasting energy. So just, there's so many ways, just think. And as I said earlier, people think that this is this horrible thing. I can't do it. There's so much to do. Just pick one thing. Pick one thing, and be that. I'm going to turn off my computer at the end of the day. And then master that, and then move on to something else. I jokingly say when people are dieting, they're like, I'm going to run 5 miles and eat a radish every day. No, you're not. You're going to do that for 1, maybe 2 days, and then fall off the wagon. Just make it simple. Make it simple, and people will follow. And tell people what you're doing. It's the best advertisement. Word of mouth is telling people what you're doing, and I'm helping the planet, and I'm saving money. Who's going to have a problem with that?
Awesome.
I just wanted to say thank you to all y'all for coming and for participating in this. And you're talking about saving water. Another one of the things I've been asking people who are making new subdivisions here, that the developers, are you going to ask the people to have metal roofs so you can collect water, for whether it's an apartment complex or a house, and whether it's 500 gallons or 5,000 gallons, depending on how much space they have, and make it as an underwater storage thing. And that would just save some of the runoff into the city or into the river, but it would keep it into their ground, which would help the foundation of their house. And it means just trying to keep it into simple terms like that. It's not just for their garden or for the environment, it's for the stability of their house, so the ground doesn't crack when it gets so dry, and the trees don't die, just, keep soil in place. It's just kind of all, you talk about little steps. I mean, they may be expensive in the beginning, but the payoff in the end, I think, is very significant for a lot of them. If they can.
It was the first thing I learned in comedy school 101 is know your audience, and that's a perfect example of that. It's homeowners and saying, yeah, this may be some added money up front, but you're going to save your home, you're going to save water, you're going to save folks down the road as we have massive storms here in Texas. You're going to help protect your neighbors. That's why as part of our climate plan in Austin, every 3 years we update the building codes for both commercial building and residential buildings. And just, things change so quickly. We want to tighten those up. So we're making sure that people are using the most sustainable practices as well as materials in building homes and businesses.
That's great. Fantastic. Well, so it's almost time, or almost an hour. I wanted to just make note, Brian Hummel has been typing a lot of things into the chat. If you haven't seen the chat, please take a look at it. I've made copies of it. I'm not sure how that works with Zoom. April will have to tell us if that actually will be part of the recording. I'm not sure, but we'll add that into comments or however we can include it.
Yes, I'll save these and add it when I upload this video.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, April. And I think with that, I think all of y'all, we so appreciate you being part of this project and part of our community in this way. And can't wait to see y'all here in Smithville when it's safe and easy to bring y'all here and, come on by, and we'll all have lunch sometime and talk more. And if there's anybody, I know I'm going to be connecting a few of each of you because I've had a couple of comments from the panelists, and certainly we'll have the presentations are available. That's my dog making a lot of noise right now. I apologize. He's looking after something on the table he can't have anyway, but at any rate, so we will make sure that this conversation continues and that we continue to talk with one another and continue to put that out there into the community and into the world. And again, thank you all so much for all of you, all your work and all you're doing for us for Smithville. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.